We still have to decide whether or not family-owned or company-owned. Plantations were the ones our foreparents preferred. First thought would persuade us to say family-owned, especially not wealthy families. These plantations had families who were similar to small business owners today. They were the easiest exposed to uncertainties, pirate invasions mostly. Often they had to seek safety in the company-built forts, which meant they had to leave their plantation in the hands of some of their slaves. Unwed or divorced sugar plantation owners, mostly widows or widowers, always had these experiences. And such incidents taught them to focus on creating and encouraging better relationships between them and their slaves. Not taking into account that their then unorthodox lifestyles helped slaves in general to know the conventional lifestyles on the company-owned sugar plantations. Though promoted as even the future example, were not best for the country, not as far as the hopes and aspirations of slaves were concerned. Uncertainties associated with the life and plantation conditions of not wealthy families had a lot to do with our African ancestors' inclines, even before slavery was abolished. When slavery ended, many of the attitudes practiced on not wealthy family-owned sugar plantations were adopted by African ancestors. All of this could be traced from our African ancestors' preference for bush life and then British Guiana. They practiced predominant gold and diamond mining operations, charcoal and lumber businesses. Those that were fearful of the jungle or still had a liking for the environment, the European government promised preferred staying close and making their living on the outskirts of the European plantations. They occupied their free time by starting small-scale chicken, pigs, and cattle farming. Fishing in the rivers and hunting in the woods were not excluded from their everyday activities. When slavery was entirely abolished, family-owned sugar plantations quickly became extinct. Our indentured ancestors had no other choice but to live and work on company-owned sugar plantations. But they were quick to copy the inclines of our African ancestors, preferring not to return to their native land, India, preferring to populate freelance spaces and establish communities. Of course, these homesteads could not be as stylish as the villages established by our African ancestors. Freedom for Africans meant they were able to amass some money of their own and use this to make their villages more productive and attractive. But nevertheless, our East Indian ancestors, as quickly as they could, adopted many work and living standards that were practiced in free African villages, instead of exposing reluctance for plantation work as the average African. These indentured folks understood that continuing doing work on sugar plantations, while at the same time copying the inclines of our African ancestors, at the same time copying many of the fishing, hunting, and planting occupations practiced by the Africans in nearby villages. They would be able to soon develop their villages to look look as splendid as some of the African villages. When the colony suffered major financial setbacks, these newly formed villages became run down and also overcrowded. This led to a lack of financial help from the British government abroad, taking care of village roads and trenches, beginning under plantations, funded heat facilities, hospitals and churches to deliver services as needed and preferred in the villages. Became serious problems, also appropriate municipality support. This was not all. Full employment on the sugar plantations was sharply reduced. Not all. Full employment on the sugar plantations was sharply reduced. And of course, all of this led to campaigns against the top dogs in the colony, meaning the large-scale sugar plantation companies. With all of that going on at this particular time in the colony, maybe some of our ancestors were right in claiming that our ancestors who faced these challenges should be acknowledged as our genuine freedom fighters. In short, our humble, God-fearing African and East Indian elders who had established villages away from the sugar plantations, together with a few of the owners of small-scale family-owned sugar plantations. This body should be accepted as our true original freedom fighters. Our grandfathers and mothers of yesterday understood the importance of the contributions of this body. Also, the wisdom these humble men and women had to exercise so as to achieve appropriate sense of freedom. Acknowledging these truths are what is most important to us today. Confident our children will imitate the wisdom displayed by our country's earliest humble and God-fearing village fathers and mothers.